Welcome, paranormal enthusiasts, to this week's episode of We're Creepin' It Real, here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, where everyone comes for their paranormal fix. Real people, real stories, in real time. So glad you could join us for some ghostly gab. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner. Hey, everybody. As always, I appreciate you hitting the subscribe tab. Podcast choice. Everybody give a hello shout out to our Coast to Coast techie, Chris Mabry. He'll be working hard tonight to help us run smoothly. Tonight's guest comes to me from the paranormal group Redbird Curiosities out of Pennsylvania. Her team is currently comprised of 3 members, but they love to take on collaborations with other teams. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Rhoades.
Hello, everyone.
Hi!
Hi.
So glad you came tonight.
Yeah, so glad. Thank you for having me.
So, Jen, you're the founder of the group. I love the name. Can you explain how it came about?
Yes. Well, I lost my mom a few years back, about 8 years this past December. And one thing that she always used to say to me whenever we drive through the countryside where I had grown up in rural Pennsylvania is she'd slow down the car and she'd say, "Watch for the redbirds. They're special. Watch for them." And after she had passed, I saw a slew of cardinals everywhere. So it only felt fitting that after everything that had happened and with that connection to cardinals in general and me associating it with my mom and my mom coming through to me fairly often, it just all seemed really fitting.
So we talked about those little nuances that they send us, and those red cardinals really are a significant thing. I mean, I've always had the connection with birds, but even this week, I was telling you my favorite little doggie passed away 2 weeks ago, and my daughter was talking about rescuing another dog, and I kept on telling Gizmo, even when he was passing, I said, "Gizmo, just make sure you send me another baby just as beautiful as you," right? And so when she said she wanted to adopt this rescue, I kept on saying, I need a sign. I need a sign. And every time I asked for it, I'd turn and look outside the window and there'd be a red cardinal in my yard.
Gosh.
So I was like, and I kept on getting signs like that all the way up until the moment that she did pick up the dog. So it was like, okay, I think you're,
awesome.
you always say you're never sure if you're ready for another one or when it's going to happen, but it just, when it does. So,
Absolutely.
but I love that. In your introduction, I mentioned how your team likes to collaborate with other teams. Well, my team happens to be one of those teams. And this past November, you invited my group, the New Jersey Spirit Hunters, to join you on an investigation at the Penhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And this investigation did not disappoint. Penhurst. I have a whole bunch of pictures that Chris is going to put up actually for the viewers so that they can kind of get an idea of what it is that we saw that night and how the building looked inside and out.
Yeah.
But Penhurst originally is known to the world as Penhurst State School and Hospital for 80 years. It was a sad reminder of how society viewed and treated people with disabilities. Over its existence, many of its residents spent decades there working at various jobs on the grounds to keep the institute up and running. Though some of these people enjoyed the lives that they fashioned for themselves by being there, many others' lives were a crushing torment. Penhurst was plagued by controversy during its entire existence, and it came to be known as a place where bad things happened. So sad. I mean, when we were there, you could actually feel that energy. I mean, look at the inside of the building now with the hospital beds there. And it was really cool when we were walking and you could see the actual patients' names still posted outside their little stall, and just really, really sad. Yeah. But the hospital opened its doors to its first client in November 1908, and it would last for 80 years thereafter. Mm-hmm. Is it true that children were actually born to residents while in the facility and they were made to live and grow up there?
I have heard from at least my research that there had been some children that were born at Penhurst and basically lived their lives there, or eventually some had left and they have been able to tell their stories. There's some really great documentaries out there about Penhurst.
Wow.
So you
Yeah.
can actually hear from some of the patients exactly what had happened and what they really experienced overall.
We have another picture of us in the tunnels. I think it might even be you and Art, and maybe even Nicole walking in the tunnels. Chris can there it is.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
you, I think, next to. Oh, it's Joe, you and Art walking down in one of the tunnels. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe before we go into discussing your particular connection with Spirit at Penhurst, we should delve into your personal background, shall we? Like, tell the listeners what you do for a living. Will you
Absolutely.
please?
Sure. So I have taught yoga and practiced yoga and meditation and mindfulness for years. I'm going on, I believe, 6 years of teaching now, but I've been practicing since I was very young. So that's a big part of my practice itself, and that kind of rolled right into the spirituality side for me. That it was a really fitting side. When you meditate, you kind of send vibes out there as it is. And I've read tarot and oracle cards for years, so it all just came kind of to a head when I decided that I wanted to really do these investigations and find evidence and kind of undo these puzzles. But I'm currently a psychology student. I'm finishing my degree right now, and I work as a behavioral therapist in New Jersey with 2 nonverbal autistic children. So being so close to the mental health field and being immersed in that constantly with individuals who would potentially have been at Penhurst, it really made that location so important to me from the get-go.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah. I have a
Mhm.
picture that Chris is going to put up. It's of us sitting down. I think it might have been around the time that you were going to use your Estes message, because you're in the picture with Nicole and Joe,
Yeah.
and they're sitting down. He's going to put that up in a second. It's Yeah, it's Nicole and Joe. You mentioned to me that you were using that method called the Estes method
Mhm.
during the investigation of the Rockwell tunnels. And you've already explained to me what the technique means, but I've never really heard of it referred to in that manner as
Yes.
the Estes method. Can you please enlighten their viewers as to what that is exactly?
Sure. So some pronounce it Estes, some pronounce it Estes, but the Estes method is it's a version of sensory deprivation. So it's where you end up putting a spirit box, which is a makeshift radio that shuffles through channels at usually like 1500s a second. It's very fast. So anything that would come through this particular radio, it would be almost impossible to hear full sentences or even more than one to two words. And that quick of a shuffle. So I put that on in headphones into my ears, and then I put gun safe headphones over my ears on top of that. So I can't hear anything around me. All I hear is what's being piped through in the white noise. And then I also blindfold myself. So I completely open up myself. Think of me as a little human ghost antenna, and I just soak in whatever I can feel, what I hear, what I sense. And I kind of give that out to the individuals that I'm investigating with, who are then asking the questions. So my answers are completely unbiased in the end.
Right. So when the people and the listeners that are listening to this, you should understand that she's got this headset on, and all she can hear is that white noise. So she's not hearing the questions that her other team members are asking the spirits. So they're just throwing out these questions to spirits. And if she gets any kind of verbiage in that white noise, she's just going to spew it out. So she might say yes, she might say no, she might say Mary, not knowing that we said, "Are you here with us now?" And she says yes. "What's your name?" "Mary." She's not knowing that she's responding to questions that they're asking. And that's, to me, I think it's very cool, because to me that's viable proof too, because
Yeah.
there's no trickery involved in that.
Absolutely. And I'm all for all of the very organic forms of investigation. Like, of course, it's really cool to see something on a screen or through an app or what have you. But I think using instinct going with your gut along the way, and using more primitive things. So my favorite tool on the planet, and Eleanor, I was talking to you about it the other day, is
Yep.
literally my flashlight. So
Yep.
that was my original tool of investigating, where I put it in this
You know
very
me.
space
I'm the
time.
same way. We love those traditional methods too. We actually
Yeah.
prefer to do that as opposed to some of the more involved things that are out now that I probably wouldn't even be able to function
Oh my goodness. Yes,
myself.
some of them are
Um,
so absurd, but yeah, it's simply just a flashlight, answering and asking yes and no questions, having them give responses through that, is fantastic. It can glitch, so of course you have to be cognizant of that. I
sure.
definitely, like, I am a skeptic by all means with some of the things. I like to be able to prove things before I say that they are indeed correct. But sometimes it's just undeniable when a question is being
Right.
asked and it's spot on over and over again. You know that there's something else connecting with you.
Well, I was really intrigued by the encounter while we were there. I asked you to tell the listeners earlier what you did for a living because I really feel it's so important to the event that we had unfold while we were with you at Penhurst.
Mhm.
But why don't you begin by telling us about the time that you were there when you met the spirit of Johnny? Because Johnny was the first little boy that you saw. Tell me his story.
All right. So Johnny, so I have some level of mediumship to me. I don't really call myself exactly a medium. I don't know where I really land on that spectrum or where it falls. But I do sense things. I do have spirits contact me and speak with me. A lot of times it is via flashlight or via spirit box, just from my own attic. So anytime I know an investigation is coming up, I do kind of put myself mentally in meditation at that location. And I kept getting contact from a little boy named Johnny. He kept telling me every time, he was saying, I can't see, I'm stuck, I don't know how to leave, they're keeping me here, I want to go, I'm not safe. And it was heartbreaking. And he told,
Right.
and I was like, well, what do I even do about any of this?
Right.
So I ended up, and how I ultimately met Nicole, who is on your team. Um,
Right.
she owns an antique shop, and I had been in the same town to work with my children that I work with. And I stopped into her antique shop because it was a few days prior to me going on this trip. I wanted an antique toy to be able to leave for Johnny if he didn't feel like he was able to cross over.
Oh, that's who
Yeah.
you were getting the toys for. Okay, now it's
Yes.
starting to click.
Yeah, so I ended up, that's the same day I met Nicole. I went
Uh-huh.
I went into her shop. I picked some toys out, like a little toy double-decker bus and a little top. And I went up to her counter to pay, and I was like, your shop is really, really spooky and haunted, right? And she's like, "Yeah, I'm a paranormal investigator." So we ended up talking, and it allowed me to end up meeting you. And I got to eventually, then when I went to Penhurst a few days later, leave the bus in the children's building in the basement. Children's building is called the Devon building, in their basement area, where he kept saying that he was or was going to be, is called Candyland. So I put that bus down there, and we were able to see it when we went back months later, even to that bus was still there.
There came a point in time when you watched a documentary on Penhurst
Mhm.
that pulled the whole Johnny story together. I
Oh,
want you to tell us about that. And Chris, I have two photos where you see a guy talking to a little kid who's blindfolded. Those you're going to show while she's telling the story.
yeah. So interestingly enough, there was the documentary. If anyone wants to check it out, it is on YouTube. It's called "Suffer the Little Children." They used to refer to all of their inmates or residents as children, no matter what age that they were. And the individual that interviewed did a 5-part little series of interviewing different children or patients that were there. One of the first ones, and I nearly fell off of my couch when I saw it, was this little boy that's in the photo, and he introduced himself as Johnny.
And
Um,
why is he blindfolded?
they never actually said, and I never got any more clarification on that. I really wish I had, or maybe something will come through at some point for me. But
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. Sometimes I get a sense of things and I don't know how true they are, but I've learned my lesson that I should just say it, and it may not, it may be true or not true, but maybe he was literally blind in his eyes.
Yeah,
You know how blind people's eyes move,
sure.
and they make a person feel very self-conscious. Maybe that's why they have the blindfold on him,
Very
because maybe he was
possible.
very self-conscious. But
Absolutely.
it's just a guess, and it could be just that. But I always say I have to say what I'm thinking. So
Oh, definitely. No, I appreciate that intake
now
on it.
this was
Yeah.
filmed in 1968 and aired July 1st to 5th. You said that as soon as he spoke his name, you knew that it was him.
Absolutely. As soon as I heard that voice, and my heart just dropped into my stomach. Like I went down a
Oh, I
roller
bet.
coaster. I was like, oh my goodness, this is just, it was him. It was the same,
Mm,
like, it was the same image that I kept seeing in my mind. And the other thing that
mm.
he kept showing me over and over again, and it will be something I'll put onto my YouTube channel myself as well. But when I had first gone down into the basement part of the Devon building, he kept showing me the staircase, which has a cage along the one side of it. And I kept seeing the staircase. I had dreams about it. I kept seeing it when I was meditating. And when I actually saw it, it was just, it's a really shaking thing, but it's also so amazing when those things do happen, when you kind of
Mm.
have that premonition. And I remember I saw the steps, and I said to my my one friend that I investigate with, who's on my team, Tony, who is in, I believe, part of the videos that I'll end up showing you. But the she had been with me, and I said as we were walking, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going down to Candyland? And she said yes, and I was like,
Oh boy.
it was, it definitely felt it. And I did catch an EVP. I don't believe I got to upload that one to the channel just yet, but I did catch an EVP later when I was reviewing my footage from my infrared footage. When we walked into that building, I had said, I was like, Johnny, I'm here to see you. And I got a whisper back, and it said, he is here.
Is
So
that the clip? Is that the clip that you brought with you today? That's on your YouTube channel?
no, I don't have that one on here. I have so many videos from over the years, and especially from all of these locations. I do have several on there, so that you may have chosen from. So,
Were you able to send Johnny into the light?
yes, I believe
You
so.
were.
And the biggest confirmation was when I was there. I sat in complete darkness with my friend Tony. We sat on one of these kind of decrepit beds with, of all things, just like doll heads that were just laying on. And if you could make anything any spookier, than a basement in an old mental facility, that's probably the best place to sit. But we went dark, and we sat there for about 25 minutes with just nothing, and we just listened. If we heard things, we at least just pointed it out to each other and acknowledged it. But we ended up speaking with Johnny. I left the bus there for him, that he could play with if he decided to stay. But I got a sense of relief as soon as I was leaving that building, like he did leave. And then when we ended up going back with your group as well, I was contacted by another child, and he
Well,
went
that's right. We spent some
through.
time in Michael's room while I was there, and you had another encounter with a child named Michael in the
Mhm.
Mayflower building. Why don't
Yes.
you tell us his story? What happened with that?
Sure, yes. So Michael, I'm not sure of the age of him. He was a resident. And from what I do end up getting from him is he had a very childlike sense to him, but I don't know if that's a mental sense or
Right.
an actual age. But he is most afraid of a spirit of the janitor that was in the building who had abused him previously, at least as far as the stories are told. So that janitor's name was King. He hides in a closet in a room on the third floor of the Mayflower building, which is the main building of the Pennhurst facility right now. That kind of is what's situated as the center. And where we keep all of our equipment. But in there, he does communicate via flashlight. He will touch different devices to be able to make himself known. And we got some knocks and some different things there too. And that video,
Wasn't Michael also bullied by other kids too? Wasn't he picked on by some other kids? And didn't we feel like it resulted in his death at one point, right?
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to is there's so much mystery with the deaths that happened at Penhurst in general because there weren't very many records that were kept or kept well because the facility itself was under such disarray because there were so many patients that were there, so
Right.
many children.
More than they were allowed to house, actually.
Exactly. And they literally considered Penhurst State School and Hospital to be, they called it the shame of Pennsylvania.
Mm.
So it was a really big turning point for the mental health world. And it closed in 1987, like, so it wasn't that long ago. It's, I guess it
Well,
is a little bit now, but still, it doesn't feel all that long ago.
Geraldo Rivera in the 80s exposed a similar hospital slash school on Staten Island
Yeah.
of the hard conditions that the residents were enduring.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that around the country, many of them shut down in the 80s due to him opening up that can of worms. So,
Absolutely.
but we did bring a clip with you from Michael's room, and Chris is going to run that for us. If you want to, we'll let it go, and then we can talk about it.
Excellent.
I feel like choking. You okay? That's weird. Yeah. Where's Michael's room? I believe it's straight down this direction. Oh. Oh. Is it just like in here? Yes. So Michael is known to be here. He was a resident. He hides from, there's a janitor that's within the building that's not so savory. Yeah, he hides from him up here a lot of the time in his closet, which is this closet. So, Michael, if you're in here, we want to speak to you. You don't have to be afraid. Michael, you might remember me from my last time meeting here. Remember we chatted for a while? You don't have to do anything you don't really want to do, but we'd love if you would communicate with us. Here, I have this toy. I'm going to throw it over to you, okay? Oops. Ooh, that's weird.
Is that the cat ball or is that a ball?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Didn't really expect it to go there, but I'm going to try another one because I have like 7.
Another cat ball.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Can you touch one of those balls that's on the floor? All it'll do is light up.
That noise was not us.
Okay.
Michael, are you scared? You don't have to be scared. We're all very friendly. And all we've come here to do is to talk to you and try to help you if we can. Michael?
So around here, you'll hear some
Oh
footsteps.
my gosh.
Holy shit. Of course, as soon as I shut the video.
Yeah. Michael, is that you? Can you touch that again if that was you, Michael? Make that ball light up. Good job, Michael. Thank you.
Good job.
Michael. Thanks for speaking with us.
We really appreciate you, you know, we're here to help you.
We're sorry for all of the bad things that have happened to you. Just know that you're not forgotten in any way.
Michael, if you come closer, we can pick up your voice on this box.
Did you just make a noise? Can you knock back?
Outside? No, that's in the hallway. That's in the hallway. The couple. Michael, or who are you?
Okay, let's play a little game, Michael. We can use this to help speak with you.
Somebody was shuffling their feet at all.
Interesting. Wow. And so I can attest to the fact that you were able to move Michael into the light because I was there when it happened.
Yes. So Michael
So,
is a special one. And what you heard at the end there, what we all experienced in a lot of cases with the spirits at Penhurst, they get a bit overwhelmed, just as anyone would if people are coming into their space and they're not expecting them, or if they're bothering them. So when these investigations happen at these locations, I always like to be very mindful and very conscious of the fact that these were human beings that we're trying to communicate with. They have
absolutely.
feelings.
Their spirits have feelings. You know, people seem to think that that's a misconception, but they were human in life and they have those emotions. And
Absolutely.
the sad part of it is if they're stuck there in that place that of misery with those people that mistreated them,
Mhm.
you know, to help them move into the light is a huge thing. It
Yeah.
really is.
And
So,
Michael's one that really I got to visit the first time I was there, the second time I was there. I'm hoping that he did indeed move forward. And then there was one other boy named Teddy that we did help out as well in the Devon building tonight. So it was there were so many little parts to it. And I think a lot of what I've been trained to do and what I do on a daily basis with children, especially with different disorders, I know how to talk to them. I know how to get to their level and understand them. And I feel like that helps my side of whatever mediumship I have to be able to connect on a better level than others might be able to.
yeah, yeah. I think, especially since children seem to be a lot of the ghostly spirits left behind because that just happens. So I think it's great that you're able to do that.
Thank you.
Well, let's move on to White Hill Mansion. I have a bunch of pictures off the website, so we'll give the White Hill Mansion website credit. It's a gorgeous old relic, circa 1723, located in Fieldsboro, New Jersey, originally owned by Robert Field. First, it was home to many over its many years and has quite a colorful history. So I think I have 3 pictures that Chris is going to put up so that the viewers can see what that looks like. Any particular reason why you wanted to investigate this particular location?
So I had seen it on a few different paranormal shows. I'm a bit picky with my paranormal shows because I really don't like the theatrics that have to go on beneath it. I really like to, like I said, use the bare bones materials and kind of find out the history by experiencing it. So as far as shows go, there were several that this was featured on, and it really caught my attention. Part of the building, and why it does say the circa 1783, part of the building was actually moved from another location. So in the photo that you see there on the far left where the 2 windows are, that's actually the original building over there. So that is a bit more decrepit than the rest, although it's still an abandoned building that's just been kind of slightly upkept otherwise. So it has all these different parts to it. So the building itself is extremely old, of course. It's backed up to a river. The basement was said to be run by the mafia or mob. And the biggest thing with that as well, when it was mob run, they had tunnels that went underneath of the building, and they say that they brought bodies out through those tunnels. So the bottom layer has that whole speakeasy vibe to it, where they do have mob ties, and there's a very angry old bartender that's back there that does pull hair and push people if they do go behind his bar. So
Oh.
a lot of funny things on that one. The main floors, the first and second floors, all have a slew of different spirits that come throughout. Another child spirit is there as well. And he kind of hangs on to women for the most part. Like he looks for motherly figures, and he followed me around most of the evening that night.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so he was just, anytime we'd be asking questions, we'd be like, okay, that's probably the kid answering again. But he ventures around there. And then the top floor was a brothel. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so there were a lot of different moving parts.
Spirits and stuff. Yeah. I imagine. Well, you brought a clip with you. What happens in that clip before we put it up for everybody?
Yes. So that clip that I posted, I have, well, there were two that I had sent over. There was one very short one that was about 30 seconds or so, which is two female apparitions kind of showing and fading out of a doorway in the brothel area. And then there's one other video of me connecting with the mobster in the basement with the flashlight.
Are they both labeled White Hill Mansion?
Yes, they should be.
Okay, Chris can put those up, then he can.
That one's not it. Oh wait. Oh yeah, Spirit Box. That's prior to White Hill. This one is interesting. This you'll see captions on because I do caption those videos. So I always do a Spirit Box session, as I said with Johnny connecting with me prior. I normally pull up the Spirit Box and see if anything does come through, and there were some significant things that showed themselves in this video.
Okay.
So you said you have something to tell me. What is it that you have to warn me every time Do I have a reason to be afraid?
Now, you were using the Spirit Box and the Estes method in this video.
Correct. So I was using the Spirit Box out loud in the same space I'm sitting in actually right now in my attic at my home.
What do I need to be careful of? Is there something particular you would like me to do to protect myself or Tony? Is there something about White Hill Mansion that I don't already know that I should be aware of? Any
You can
last
keep her up.
warnings or things you need to say?
That it's quaint.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And V1 was interesting as well, especially with the flashlight and coordination.
And the history too of the building is just.
Can you say your name?
Mm-hmm. When I ask their name and they say me.
If you haven't already, please tell me your name, whoever I'm speaking with.
I can hear it too. What was that? I can hear it very clear.
Yeah, that's most of my Spirit Box sessions up here are that clear, and that's why we think that there's some type of portal or doorway here that lets more come through.
Last chance, and then turn off the device.
Okay, I'm gonna close this down for right now, close this portal until next time when it's open. Thank you for communicating and telling me anything that you did.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that gives a little taste of the spirit box. So that when we were talking about the Estes method, that is what's being piped into the headphones. So all of that static, the chatter, that's what's being piped in when I have those noise canceling
When
headphones
you,
on top.
right,
Yeah,
right.
and I'm
This,
blindfolded. Yeah,
right. In this particular incident, you didn't do that. You had it open and audible to
right.
you or whoever was in the air. Chris, do you have another video over there from White Hill Mansion or no?
It should be a short clip if there is one.
For
30
some reason, I don't remember seeing that for some reason. But the home that you're talking about in the attic where you're at now, that's your home in Easton, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's pretty active, it sounds like you said.
Yes. So even as I'm sitting here, I have like every goosebump possible because everything kind of, I think, forms in this room. And this is really where I do any of my reaching out or communication or tarot reading, any of my spirituality, my meditation, my yoga is done up here. So it's just kind of at my epicenter of the home.
Your epicenter.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And you say you get visited by your deceased mom all the time.
Yes. She's
You and
very
you and she in the end were estranged, correct?
correct. Yes. She
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, and thank you. Yes, she suffered from mental illness. She was diagnosed with bipolar when she was 18, and took lithium her entire life to help control that. And then ultimately that ended up giving her kidney disease in the end. So she was near the end stages of that, and she could no longer take medication. So she and I had kind of parted ways, and I had tragically learned later that she had committed suicide. So it really was a very strange ending, because I didn't know if I was even going to speak to her, if she would still be living. But then that option was totally taken away from me to even bring her back into my life. I spent years just really wondering. And when I had said at the beginning with the Cardinals, after she had passed, I had, to the point that like I would see, like I'd have 4 or 5 cardinals just pass in front of my car as I'd be driving to work. I had cardinals sitting at my feet the one day when I was
That would be the perfect way for her to connect with you. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what she told you in life, so it would make so
Exactly.
much sense.
And
Yeah.
and her other way of communicating, and I don't know how it exactly works, but I hear Beatles songs everywhere I go, and not just because they are such a classic band and played so often and have so many tracks, but it's to a point that if I go into a place, especially like familiar places that we would go together, I'll hear several different Beatles songs, and they'll all be very specific ones.
Oh, that's so cool.
So she'll show herself that way very often, and it's definitely really interesting the way that she does come through, and I can sense her with me most of the time, and it's really just a feeling of comfort more than anything.
Well, you have a clip with you today when you actually confirmed your mom's presence with you.
Yeah.
Chris, can you run that for us? It actually says confirming mom's presence.
Yes. I named them literally.
Good girl.
So, Mom, since you've confirmed that you were
It might be buffering.
Yeah. Is the flashlight going to go on and off if that's what's going to happen?
Correct. Yes. So she communicates very well through flashlight. The very first time I got the courage to do the flashlight was because I felt like she was here. And yes.
There we go. The flashlight went on. I love that. I love that. That is so cool when
And
that happens. It's so cool.
Exactly. It's something that when it's on command like that too, because as far as the audio goes, and you can go to my YouTube channel that's shown under my name there. It would be Jen Rhoades, Redbird Jen Rhoades. So if you do go to that, you can see the video on there as well. But it's completely in sync with my questions that I ended up asking her.
Love that. So they can go to that site after, but I just love the fact that they were able to just see the flashlight go on and off. I
Yes,
mean,
that makes me so happy.
that's just random. I mean, that,
Yeah.
that she's talking to the spirit, and it's her mom is turning that light on and off. And when that happens, there's just no denying that either. I mean, we've had that happen to us before and be like, no, 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 it's the flashlight, and it just continues to happen. So
Oh yeah.
to me, that's also undeniable proof. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I know you were telling me that your mom told you a lot about heaven. We had a discussion about aging and growing up there. I had mentioned to you that my sister died really young, and that the day my dad died, when he came to me to tell me that he had passed, my sister was a grown woman in heaven when she greeted him.
Mhm.
So we connected on that because I was like, tell me that's what you've experienced. And you were like, yeah.
Mhm.
So tell me what she said to you.
Sure. So since she does come through so often, I would say once I got the courage to actually start putting the flashlight on in my attic and kind of reach out with that extra line of communication to visually see and be able to put it onto video and not just be an experience of my own, I was able to speak with her countless times. She comes through mostly like 2 or 3 times a week if I ask her to. So she'll communicate a lot. And since she is so consistent with that, I've gotten to ask her questions that normally I don't think most people would get to ask, such as, again, if she has any more pain or if she is suffering at all, if her mental illness followed her. And she's confirmed no, that there's no mental illness, there's no pain.
That's great.
And
yeah, I've heard so. Yeah.
yeah, and it's incredible. Even to little strange facts, like she said, because I was like, how did you find me? Like, how are you, like, how do you travel? And she said that like they go different places. She says that she sees different celebrities and movies, and they have TV and things like that, which is one of her favorite things. My mom was a TV addict to a T. And but she did say that all of her past favorites were there. But it's come through in different ways to me too. Even I had some EVPs from or electronic voice phenomena that came through to me from even White Hill Mansion and different places that I've investigated at, where they confirm that there's no music. And it's been
Which
something
is
that,
so
yeah,
strange.
it is the oddest thing out of all things that there could be. There's no music wherever they are. So the one thing that my mom usually does ask me when she comes through is to hear a Beatles song. So the very first song she ended up asking me to play for her was, it's just so strange even as it is, but she asked for Obladi Oblada, Life Goes On. So
Yeah.
else that could be more spot on to what was happening, I don't know, but I sat there and it was one of the first times she'd come through to me, so I was obviously pretty shaken seeing
Sure.
that. She came through for about a solid half hour that she communicated. We talked, we reconciled things, we got
That's
things
so
out
nice.
there, and at the end I turned off I was recording it on my phone, but I couldn't play the Beatles song for her without stopping the recording. So when I stopped it, though, the flashlight actually pulsed to the beat of the music like she was responding or dancing to it.
And you know what? It really doesn't matter. Just that you knew was all that you needed. I mean, you don't
Absolutely.
have to prove anything to anybody. It was just something that you needed. And I tell that to people because a lot of people ask me questions about this stuff, and I just am very blunt and honest with them.
Mhm.
It's all for you, and whatever you feel in your heart. Like if you have a special uh, sign that you want to receive, that's your special sign. It could be a cloud, it could be a butterfly, it could be a red bird, it could be all birds, it could be whatever it is that you want. And if it happens, don't let anybody tell you that it's not what you think it is. Because
Yeah,
if you feel in your heart, that's who it is.
yeah,
That's who it is.
most definitely.
And find comfort in that.
Yeah,
And that's just a huge thing. And we were also talking about spirit of animals and
yeah,
how they're so wonderful, and people are drawn to these stories because everyone wants to know that their beloved pets visit from beyond. I mean, you and I spoke about this just as we were beginning the show, and how
yeah,
I'm receiving signs from my little guy that I lost 2
mhm,
weeks ago,
yeah,
and they are members of the family, and I truly believe in my heart that they are on the other side and they can come back. And I've said to all of my dogs, and my guinea pigs. I said, I expect you guys to be waiting at the gate for me when I get there. So I think it's really nice when people get that affirmation that their pets still come around too. I mean, you had an experience with your sister's horse, right?
Yes. So my sister-in-law Janine, shout out Janine, she's watching. So she lives out in Ohio, and she has been an equestrian for her majority of her life. And one of her horses that she had had from childhood, it had to sadly be put down. It was unexpected due to an injury. And when he was put down, of course, all of us were devastated. But the more peculiar thing was at the end, she kept seeing this large orb, which in the paranormal community, people are a little divided on that as to if it could be just a sun.
Oh yeah.
It could be
Yeah, there's a huge divide.
like all these different things. But what really struck me as odd with this one is she tried with different cameras. She tried it when it was shady. She tried it when it was sunny. She went to different locations, and it still came through with the same border, and it was oblong. Like it was an oval more than it was a circle like you normally see for an orb, which seems a little odd, but it kept showing up everywhere. And she kept documenting it for me, sending me things, and she's like, what is this? What does an orb look like? And I ended up speaking to what I consider to be Axel's spirit, which is the name of the horse, Axel. So I had kind of tuned into it, and I was like, hey, if other people can speak, and they're in Buddhism, I do believe in reincarnation. So I'm like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
what if this could be maybe he had a spirit in him that maybe was more sentient, or maybe animal spirits in general are just sentient and they can speak our language because they know the language, or it's something universal. So I tried reaching out to him here just as I would to any locations I'm going to, or to my mom, or any other spirits that are kind of resident here in my home. But I reached out to him via flashlight, sitting right where I am. And I was like, Axel, buddy, like if this is you, like react, turn on the flashlight. And he did. He reacted back to me. He said that he was showing himself to Janine. He was trying to make his presence known and know that she should feel comforted, that he's safe, and he wants to stay at home where he belonged.
Oh, that's so precious. Well, I know we have a video, one that says it's the horse visiting home from afterlife orb. Is that Axel
Yes,
too?
that is
And then
Axel.
then there was the video that you have that's just labeled Axel. That's something different, right?
That one is a different one, yes. But any of the
Okay,
Axel
so
ones would be related.
Chris is gonna put the afterlife orb on first for us
Great.
to see. Can't wait to see this one.
I know. They're really cool.
I'm looking for the video real quick.
Yeah, the horse visiting home from the afterlife orb one.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's on your YouTube channel too.
Correct.
That you have it there. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
the visiting home one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then you can do the Axel one right after.
Mhm.
Sorry, we are experiencing technical difficulties.
yeah, we won't take that.
Okay.
Woohoo.
Hopefully it doesn't glitch back out.
Oh, there we go. Something's
You
coming.
should-
Okay. Fingers crossed. Pooh.
Oh, that's connecting with my mom. That's a different one.
Yeah, that's not the one, Chris. It's the afterlife
No,
orb.
no.
My mom, I guess, just really wants to be seen tonight.
I guess so. Well, Mom, we know you're here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We've talked about you already. We know that you're connecting with Jen, and I'm so happy to hear that.
But now you need to let Axel come through.
That's right. If worse comes to worse, if he can't get them up and running for whatever reason, I do have the photographs that you
Excellent.
brought with you.
Great.
That we were going to put those up anyway at the end,
Yeah.
but I thought it would be cool to see the videos if we were able to,
Definitely. And the one cool part about it is he would show up right around the other horses in the pasture. So he would be seen like right with them, and just as he would buddy up to them normally when they would be there. So it was a really
that it's expected, kind of like it was perfect that's where you would see him.
Yeah, and I think my favorite one, and I wasn't unable to find the photo of this one, but it does exist somewhere. That when she had actually taken a photo, it was after I'd communicated with him on the flashlight, and I specifically told him, like, okay, come through to your mom, come through to Janine, and like let her know that you're there, let her know that you're safe and you're comforted and you're fine. And that same day, she actually sent me a photo of right next to her. She was in a shady spot, and the orb showed up next to her. So I'm like,
okay.
So because it was shady, and it was right next to her. So he definitely listened to my command on that one.
Oh, that is so cool. I also know that we're talking about let's see, is he getting it up? I know how we're talking about how animals can come back to us, but I also love the reaction of animals to spirit too. That's a whole other cool thing.
Most definitely. I think they all are very cognizant of
Oh yeah.
And it's perfect. Yeah, this is the one, I believe. Yes.
It's Tuesday. It's a new day. And it is right over Mazzy.
So Mazzy is the horse in the back.
This is some of the crazy.
Can you enlarge it, Chris? Can you make it larger so we can see closer?
Way.
Yeah, it's a quick
Tuesday.
but yeah, if you can make it bigger, you'll see it. And it actually disappears on camera as well, which is kind of significant. And I thought was interesting because I don't know why it would dissolve if
to
it
do
was.
that. Yeah.
And
Today, and it is right
No.
Where's the
so it's
So
right over top of the horse that's further away, back to the back there.
Okay.
And it's right above him, and it's a large oval shape. So as it does, though, it kind of dissolves. So as she's talking, as you hear my sister-in-law's voice talking, the orb actually just like disintegrates and goes into nothing. And I still can't really find an explanation for how that's possible. It was pretty amazing. And I have seen, and even just speaking to orbs in general, on our trip, Eleanor, when we were at Penhurst, it was constant. There's so many orbs.
Oh, I know there were.
And it is right over
Oh wait,
Mazzy.
I think I do see it. Yeah. I think I'd love to see it. I'm gonna have to go on your YouTube channel just to get a closer view of it. But those pictures that you sent, you can really see the orb.
Yes, definitely.
So if Chris can put those photographs up too, we can get a look at those.
Yeah, that'll
beautiful horses though.
Yes, they're both awesome. So yeah, so she does so well with them.
There we go. So this is the orb that you're talking about. Yep.
Yes.
And in another picture it pops up, and in another picture it pops up. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand why you would say some people would argue that it's sunlight or something, but it's just very, very strange.
Exactly.
Very strange.
And
Look
the
at that.
interesting part, even with that particular photo, so they say in the orb world that if it does have a solid outer ring, and then you can tell that there's a center that's a different shade or lighter than the outer ring itself, that is something that's a bit more peculiar or something that
Well,
maybe.
you know what, Jen? People are going to argue with me right now, but I see
Oh,
a
yeah.
horse's head in that picture in that orb
Oh
right
my
there.
goodness, I see it too. Oh my gosh.
Facing for me, I see the horse's
Yes.
nose. I could see the horse's um, nose. I don't know what you
And the
call it on a
ears.
horse,
Yes,
but
I can.
and the
Oh.
eye. So the horse is looking right out at us. So
And Eleanor, I've looked at this photo so many times and I have never caught that. That is
yeah,
incredible.
see, you were meant to show it tonight, so I could tell you. Your sister-in-law will
Yeah.
probably notice it now too if she's looking at it.
Yes. Oh. Oh my
So
goodness.
cool.
Yes, so neat.
I we were just talking about how animals come back to us and how animals react. I had a woman who came to one of my book signings, and she had recently lost her husband, and their cat. You know how certain animals are drawn to other people. I mean, they're all family members, and you love them all, but they usually have their own human that they're
Yeah.
attached to. Well, this cat was her husband's cat. And she said ever since he died, the cat was acting really, really strange. She was
Mhm.
acting like she did when he was alive, when he would play with her and how she would go
Oh,
around his legs. And she said it got so much that she decided to video it
yeah.
because people weren't believing that she said this cat was playing with her deceased husband. And she gave me the video, and I use it in my presentations because people
Mhm.
just love to see this cat playing with nobody there.
It's
So I just love the fact that they communicate with spirit and they
ah,
communicate to us in
they
spirit.
totally
So
do. And I was saying even when I saw you last, there was a really strange occurrence that happened in our home even this was a few months back. And I was asleep. It was middle of the night, have no idea what time. My animals, I have a dog and a cat and my lovely other half, John, that we were all in the same bed. But my cat was laying on me. I could feel her like on my lap or on my stomach. The dog's normally at the end of the bed. John's next to me. And I woke up for a moment from sleep and I looked forward and I felt the weight of my cat there. But I looked and there was a cat sitting right next to me, but like sitting up where I felt my cat laying down, but my brain didn't totally connect with it. I went to pet the cat that was sitting up and my hand just went down to the bed. And I can't really explain that one either. It looked like a tabby cat. I've never had a tabby cat. Why that would be there, I'm not sure. But it's they do show themselves when they really want to, and they're
well,
around.
you live in an old home. You said you live
Yes.
in an old home, so there must have been a cat that lived there. I told you when we were at Burnbrae, I got woken up by the ghost cat, right?
Oh yes.
We were in the matriarch of the house in her suite. There was three of
Hmm.
us sleeping in the room, and the door was closed. So I mean, I knew we were in there all night, chit chatting, laughing, having a good time. There was no cat there,
Yeah.
and
It's
I get woken up by this cat jumping on the bed, and it's like, oh, where'd you go? And I'm go looking for this cat, and I realize the door's closed. I'm like, shit, I just got woken up by the ghost cat. And when I told the
yeah.
owners, they were like, oh yeah, you got to experience. So
And
it was pretty cool.
it's really interesting. And the one thing I'm doing, so I mentioned prior to us going live, I'm going to Colorado spontaneously. And we have a friend that ended up having a place for us to stay. So we're flying out tomorrow. And John had asked me, what's the one thing that you want to do near Denver? And my biggest thing that I wanted to do was to go to the Stanley Hotel, which is what Stephen King based his writing of The Shining on. So I get to go
Right.
do a ghost tour of that on Sunday. So I'm quite excited to get to
How
actually
exciting.
experience it. And one of the things that they had mentioned, and I didn't get to look into it too far, but they did say that there is a famous ghost dog there. So that's
Oh, okay.
something that caught my attention that I really didn't know about the place until I did a little bit further research. So I'll have to
We
keep.
did we did an investigation sometime last year. I can't remember which month it was, but in the Lotta Crabtree house. It had to be like in May. I think it was May because
Mhm.
they did a feature on us in the newspaper, the Lake Hopatcong News, because of the investigation we did at the Lotta Crabtree house. And she
Mhm.
was a famous actress in the 1800s. And when we were in that house, the mediums were picking up on a golden retriever and her behaviorisms. And when they said it to the homeowner, she just was so stunned. She's like, oh my goodness, that's my dog.
Yeah.
So in the house with her too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
This was so
absolutely.
much fun. I really had a great time. Woo! I would love for
Oh,
you to tell everybody what your website is and your YouTube channel so
oh.
this way they can find you after you leave here today.
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram as Redbird Curiosities or under Jennifer Rhoades Yoga. So you can find me on either of those. And also on YouTube, I am under either my name as Jen Rhoades or Redbird Jen Rhoades.
Do you have a TikTok?
I do not. I have not
Ah,
TikTok yet.
okay. I
I'm
just
still holding
started
off on
last
that
year.
one.
Yeah, I just started last year, so I'm really trying to get into it. But
Yeah.
um, it's fun. It's another thing you have to do, but it's fun.
Right. That's what matters.
Oh, well, Jen, thank you so much for coming tonight. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I look forward to having more collaborations with you in the future. I know
Absolutely.
that you will be joining us for the Sterling Hill Mine Museum. We get to go back
Yes.
into the mines again. Yay, I'm so
So
excited.
excited. And same with
Yeah.
and we're doing an old Burlington County Jail as well.
Jail, that's right, the jail
Yeah.
together. So good. I look
Really
forward to
excited.
seeing you again.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Eleanor.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
And thank you, Techie Chris. We couldn't do it without you. If you like listening to this week's episode and you're into all things paranormal, check out my other show, Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast out of the Paranormal UK radio network, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm really excited to announce my new book, Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, Part 3, came out on Halloween this year. And my first children's second grade reader called Janine Bean Meets Mavis the Camel is available now too. I mean, you wouldn't know that I went to school to write for children, and this is the first children's book I've ever written. But if any of you are interested in reading any of my books, you can find the links to them on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com. I write about the history of the town and location, and I add the paranormal story to the mix and finish it all off with photos and evidence. Viewers, tune in on Thursday, February 2nd, when I will be interviewing Tower Paranormal at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stay for a while and listen as Alexander Nakarada's soundtrack takes us out.
I hope you've enjoyed this little journey down my own personal nightmare alley. If you're one of those people who experiences the paranormal and has stories of your own you've been filing away over the years, I want to hear about them. And if you're a part of a paranormal investigative team, even better. I'd love to have you on my show. Got a questionable photo? Send it in. Would love to have an open discussion here amongst the professionals. Reach out to me at authoreleanorwagner@gmail.com. Enjoy our soundtrack music, Headless Horseman by Alexander Nakarada, promoted by freestockmusic.com. And remember, no ghost story is better than a real-life ghost story. Until we meet again, make sure you're creeping it real.